All right, you ready for this one? 7 hours in Virgin Atlantic business class to fly here to Europe from the East Coast would cost more money and more points than a week on the all-inclusive Virgin Voyages cruise ship behind me.
Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious, and don't call me Shirley.
Virgin Voyages is a pretty new cruise line, but they have won so many awards, including the world's best cruise line. So, can it live up to the hype? And how in the world did we book this incredible $5,000 experience using miles and points? Let's get on board and I'll explain everything. So I'm going to give you our thoughts on every aspect of our Virgin Voyage cruise, including the food, staff, entertainment, show you around our cabin and the boat, and the overall vibes, of which there are plenty. But before we get to all of that fun stuff, let's just jump right into the nerdy details of how we booked this $5,000 cruise using points, because my brain is still struggling to wrap itself around the fact that this entire trip, including all of the incredible food, was completely free, like literally zero.
Literally.
So if you just want to hear my thoughts on this cruise, then you can jump to this timestamp, but this is definitely in my top 3 favorite redemptions of all time. So if you're into all of this miles and points stuff, then you're probably familiar with Virgin Atlantic, but as you may know, the Virgin brand also has Virgin Hotels, Virgin Voyages, Virgin Red, which is their lifestyle brand, and a bunch of other stuff. And I mention that because Virgin Red offers a ton of unique ways to redeem Virgin points, including on Virgin Voyage cruises. These range from a couple nights in the Caribbean to multi-week transatlantic voyages if you really want to go nuts. And while booking these Virgin Voyages with points is definitely a multi-step process, it is surprisingly easy, so let me walk you through exactly how to do this. So first, you just need to set up a Virgin Atlantic and Virgin Red account, both of which are free. Don't get hung up on the difference between these too much because they're basically the same thing, but you can link these accounts together and then use the points that you're going to transfer to Virgin Atlantic to book a ton of fun stuff through Virgin Red, including Virgin Cruises. But before you run off and transfer your points, there's a few very important steps that we first have to take care of. You'll of course want to go through the available redemptions on the Virgin Red website and see which cruises are actually available to book with points. And I'd actually recommend that if this is something that you're interested in, then go check this website occasionally because they frequently update it with new options, which I'll admit are pretty tempting. Anyway, you can see that these start for less than 100,000 points for a few nights and go all the way up to multi-week transatlantic voyages for over 300,000 points. So you've got plenty of options here. And if you're able to take advantage of the frequent 30% transfer bonuses that Virgin Atlantic offers, like I did for our cruise, then you could get a cruise like this for as little as 65,000 points, which is wild. But once you find a Virgin Red offer and a cruise that you're excited about, you'll then want to head over to the Virgin Voyages website and make sure that that cruise is actually available. And this is probably the most important part, so definitely pay attention here. And I say that because if we click into one of these offers back on the Virgin Red website, you can see that there are a lot of specific requirements. With most of these offers, you have to sail on a specific boat or out of a specific port on certain dates. There might be blackout dates, and I promise it's not nearly as complicated as I'm making it out to be, but I'm emphasizing this because all of these little details are very important. You've got to make sure that the cruise that you want is actually available and meets all of the necessary requirements before you transfer points, because as you probably know, transferring points is a one-way street. Okay, so we've set up our accounts, selected a cruise. Now it's as simple as transferring points to your Virgin Atlantic account, and the good news is that Virgin Atlantic is a transfer partner with every major card provider. And once you transfer those points to Virgin Atlantic, they'll also then be available in your Virgin Red account. So you just click the redeem button on the offer that you want. Those points will immediately be deducted from your Virgin Red accounts, and within a couple of days, you'll receive an access code, which is like a coupon that allows you to book your cruise for $0. So yes, there's definitely a weird waiting game that takes place here, so do be aware of that in advance. But I didn't have any problems, and it took less than 24 hours in my case, and I immediately went on and booked my cruise as you normally would through Virgin Voyages, entered that access code, and the price went from $5,000 to $0. No taxes, no fees, literally $0. Again, check all of those important details, but we're actually looking at some solid redemption values here. I mean, if we take the typical cash price of our room on this cruise of $5,159 and divide that by the 123,000 points that we redeemed thanks to the 30% transfer bonus that I mentioned earlier, that's 4.2 cents per point. But even if we take the discounted cash price, since Virgin is constantly running different promos, which would be around $3,500, that is still a redemption value of 2.85 cents per point. points, and that's 123,000 points for 2 people with an upgraded sea terrace room with a full balcony, and that includes all of your food. And as you'll see in a second, we're not talking some mediocre buffet. This is like 5-star gourmet restaurants with menus catered by Michelin-starred chefs. Okay, that was a lot of numbers, and I want to get to all of the fun stuff and show you what you actually get for your points to help you decide if this is worth it for you. So let's wrap up this section with a pretty interesting question. Okay, just go with me on this. If you and a friend found yourself in Miami sometime in August and you had a ton of credit card points burning a hole in your pocket, first of all, call me. But with those points, you could either book 2 business class flights to London for 115,000 points and over $2,000 in fees, or you could book a 5-night all-inclusive Caribbean cruise sailing out of Miami for the same 115,000 points and $0 in fees. With all that money you saved, you could buy the nicest drink package on board, book an excursion at every single port that you stop at, or book an entire second Virgin cruise in cash if you wanted to. Now, obviously, this is not an apples-to-apples comparison. One is actually taking you to a completely different part of the world, and the other is a floating resort. But just in terms of the experience that you're getting for your points, which one would you choose? 5-night all-inclusive cruise that saves you $2,000 or 7 hours in business class? Well, I think we've had enough numbers for one video, so if you're having trouble deciding, then let's finally break down everything that you get on board a Virgin Voyages cruise. All right, now for the fun part. I'll preface everything I'm about to say by reminding you that this is my first cruise, so I have nothing to compare it to, but let's break this into 5 categories to hopefully help you decide if this is worth your hard-earned points. We'll rank the food, entertainment, the staff and service, our cabin, and the boat as a whole, and then of course the 5th and most important category that we'll be calling the vibes. I realize that's a stupid name, but this is just the little details that add up on any trip, like were the locations well thought out? Were the transfers from ports convenient? Were schedules and activities clearly communicated? Did you feel welcome and safe on board? And all the little stuff that can be the difference between a somewhat chaotic and at times stressful experience and a truly relaxing vacation. Each category is worth 10 points for a total of 50 possible points, and we'll start off with the staff. If you've ever been on a Virgin Atlantic flight, then you probably know that the staff, or flight attendants in that case, are one of the best parts of the entire experience. And I am happy to say that that is also the case on Virgin Voyages. They are extremely upbeat and friendly, but in a genuine way, and that positive energy definitely trickles down to the passengers, and as a result, everyone on board is just in a really good mood and having a lot of fun. Other aspects of the cruise probably help with that, but friendly staff certainly doesn't hurt. So for the staff, we're starting off pretty strong with an 8 out of 10. Now, as far as entertainment is concerned, you may have heard that Virgin has a bit of a reputation. And I definitely wouldn't describe Aaron and I as partiers, but it seems like if you're into that kind of thing, then yes, there's plenty of fun to be had on board, but if you're like me and that's not your vibe, then it's really pretty easy to just avoid the nightclubs and parties. The shows we went to were also pretty decent and were a great way to pass the time during the sea days, so I'm gonna give the entertainment a 7 out of 10, but if you're more of a partier, then you might rank it a little bit higher. Perhaps my favorite category, and the one that surprised me the most, is the food. Like I mentioned earlier, all of your food and gratuities are included with your ticket, and trust me when I say this is not a cafeteria-style buffet. We've eaten at every single restaurant on board multiple times at this point, and all of them are multi-course gourmet meals that would easily cost $100 at a normal restaurant. Even the more casual grab-and-go style galley has been fantastic, and despite the fact that our particular cruise is completely full, we've just walked up to whatever restaurant we wanted to eat at that night and didn't really have to make many reservations. The food alone makes me want to live on this boat full time, so I'm gonna give the food category a 10 out of 10. Last but not least, before we get to the all-important vibes category, is our cabin and the boat as a whole. Most of the cabins on Virgin cruises are a sea terrace cabin like ours, meaning you have a full balcony. And if you book using points, that rate gets you one of these sea terrace cabins, so just because you book with points doesn't mean you're gonna be hidden away in a windowless closet. Of course, it's not the largest room in the world because, after all, this is a floating hotel, but between the balcony, which has the world's most comfortable hammock, the really nice shower with well-thought-out storage spaces, and all the little details like the fact that you can control every aspect of the room, from the lights, the TV, the AC, and everything from this tablet, let's just say I would be ecstatic if this was my hotel room on land, let alone floating in the middle of the ocean. As far as the ship overall, there's definitely some odd quirks that others who are much better better cruising experts than I am have already pointed out online, like the confusingly small pool for such a large ship, or the double high tinted glass in areas that completely block your view of the ocean for no apparent reason. But if you haven't noticed by this point, I'm personally not that picky about that kind of stuff, and overall, each individual space is pretty well thought out. They're incredibly unique, but still have that obvious Virgin branding behind them, and they clearly paid a lot of attention to the little details, like opening your cabin door and the curtains automatically opening to the beautiful outside view. In general, it really does feel like you're floating on a 5-star resort, so I'm gonna give the cabin and boat a 9 out of 10. And for what it's worth, we did meet this really nice couple at dinner one night who's been cruising for over a year and a half on dozens of different cruise lines, and they said that Virgin Voyages is by far their favorite, so make of that what you want. All right, last but certainly not least, the vibes category and my final thoughts on all of this. If it wasn't obvious by now, there are plenty of vibes to go around on Virgin Cruises, and despite the fact that they are a brand new cruise line, they hired some of the best names in the industry to really think through every aspect of their cruises. And while I'm sure there's a few things that they would probably do differently, overall the vibes are very high on board. This has been one of the most relaxing weeks that I've had in a very long time, and based on the fact that I've already been researching another Virgin Voyages cruise, I'd say that Aaron and I have definitely enjoyed ourselves. So the vibes get a 9 out of 10, bringing our total to 43 out of 50, which for our first cruise is a pretty high bar to beat. So at the end of the day, the fact that such a unique and incredible experience like this can be booked using miles and points is exactly why I love miles and points in the first place. The fact that one sign-up bonus on a number of credit cards is enough to earn you an experience like this for free just blows my mind. So if you want to check out all of the latest welcome offers and start working towards your own Virgin Voyage, then I'll link to our top travel credit cards page down in the description, which we are constantly updating so that you can get the best welcome offers out there. And using those links doesn't cost you anything, but it does help support all of this free content that we make here at Daily Drop, so thank you so much in advance for that. I'm gonna go enjoy the little time we have left on our cruise, but as always, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next week. Oops. Oh, no.
Look at this. You can activate cinema mode. Sick.